Hey guys, we're here at the shop today. I wanted to talk a little bit about parts. On our web store, we sell over 400 parts, but only a handful of those parts are Rad Industries developed, manufactured parts. So I'm gonna do a series called Rad Parts, and I'm gonna go over each part in detail. And today, we're gonna go over my favorite part that we developed, which is the Rad Industries Water Inlet Alternator Bracket for the 2JZ GTE motor. Well, it can be for any 2JZ or 1JZ motor. Let me tell you why I made it, how we developed it, and then a little bit about the behind the scenes of that, and then we'll go into the pros and cons. So each part that we go over, we'll tell you why it happened, and then we'll tell you the pros and cons, and kind of show you, if we can, we'll show you either on a car working, or in this case, we're gonna show you on a motor. And the reason I have the other motor over here is I want you to see stock form of a 2J. Okay, so let's talk about why this part came to be in the first place. So on pro drift cars, the radiator is in the rear of the car and you're running an electric water pump. There's some other people that might have that on a street car, not the radiator in the rear, but they'll have an electric water pump, or drag cars might have an electric water pump. Years ago, people were drilling a hole right here and doing like a two-part piece with a weld-on bung and just have this ugly piece sticking out, and then your water inlet was going through this plastic, or they had the plastic removed. And I kept thinking, I wish it could just be stock, but you know, still utilize an AN fitting and put an AN line to it, but not have this ugly hole right here. So for a while I had my timing belt exposed, and then I kept thinking, why I should just somehow use part of a stock water pump. And then this idea came to me and I wanted to make this, but it didn't happen for many years. Finally, with the combination of my friend Tyler and a 3D printer, we went back and forth many times and we came out with this part. It's a two-piece design. This is a stock water pump, and we kind of like mocked it off of this back section of the stock water pump, but then minus where you would have your return hose and your thermostat and all this nonsense here, because it's for a race car. So we still made it a two-piece so that we could, you know, bore out the inside to let the same amount of water flow into the motor, so we're not restricting it in any way. Okay, so there's one detail I want to talk about. This part is two halves, like I had mentioned. You guys might be thinking right now, what seals it in between the two halves? So there's a groove inside there on the lower half piece, this bottom piece, that holds an O-ring. The part will be shipped to you if you were to buy it with these three Allens already installed, so you would never see that O-ring, but if you're a very curious person, you would have to take these Allens out, and then you can check that O-ring out, and it's in there. It's a lot different than what they did back in the 90s with the stock water pump, because it had a gasket in between the halves. We wanted to make this a more reliable long-term product so that you can reuse it many times, and the O-ring will still be good if you were to open it up and check it out, but in case somehow there was damage, you could always buy another O-ring. But I have personally tested it. It's not going to do anything. It's on the race cars. We're all good, but now you know what's inside. It bolts directly to the motor as the water pump would. There's this space right here in the stock plastic that looked just right to put an AN fitting on, so we did the ORB female there. And the reason we did an ORB is because some people are going to want to put a dash 16 like I did myself, thread the dash 16, so you can thread a 16 in there. Or if you did want to use a 20, now you can just get a reduction 20, but it's not actually any smaller, so the inside of the 20 is the same. And you can thread your 20 on there and run a dash 20 line. So it gives you choices. And the third reason we did that, if we had made this the male version of an AN and somehow you'd put a little ding in the mating surface of where your fitting would go, then you'd have to buy a whole new part. So by using this union, if you did put a ding in there and it doesn't seal anymore, you don't have to throw away the whole water inlet alternator bracket, you just buy a new union. That's why it kind of turned out this way. And the way to seal it is just with an OEM O-ring. That goes underneath there, right here. That's all you need to bolt this to your motor, and it's sealed. Let me just quickly mention this so you guys can get a visual. This is an alternator we make. We're not talking about that today, but as you can see, the alternator just bolts right up to it. and it gives you a tiny bit of room for adjustment here for your belt. But once you have it set, you just lock it down and you're good to go. All right, this is the RAD 160 self-exciting alternator. We will talk about this in another video coming shortly. But the reason I was demonstrating that is because it does also have an alternator bracket. So you can put that alternator, an OEM alternator. If you like a different brand, you can put that alternator on there. It would just be probably belt size would be the difference. We could have developed it without this bracket on there, but we figured while we're here, you're gonna need an alternator in the OEM location, or you should, so we just did it all as one piece. So some of the pros would be that you can interchange from a -16 to 20, or if you happen to mess up your union, you can easily replace that. The other pros are that you can run all your stock plastics covering up your timing belt from any rocks, rubber, whatever you could get in there and throw your timing off. You don't want that. It utilizes all the OEM bolt holes that are pre-threaded, so it just bolts right in. Everything plugs in perfectly. And then another pro is it looks extremely nice on your motor, cleans it up. It also eliminates some other accessory, like for the accessory belt, it'll eliminate a lot of things, so you're just making a cleaner race motor. If we're gonna get into the cons would be you no longer have a water pump, so you have to have an electric water pump. For people with a rear radiator, they're gonna already have that, so that wouldn't really be a con. But if you wanted this on your street car, you would have to really come up with your plan for how you're gonna run your belt. Your stock belt system would now be a lot different. And you would also need to buy an efficient water pump that's electric and wire that in and plumb that somewhere out of the way, I guess, so because there's no room right here. So there's a couple things that would be negative, but mostly it's a positive part. We've tested it on the pro race car, my practice car. Forrest Wang uses it on his pro race car. Dylan Hughes has it on his pro race car now. And Dan Stuckey has it on his pro race car. Those are all drift cars, by the way. But we have had the pleasure of selling this part all across the world. It's gone to Sweden, Norway, Australia, New Zealand, some places in South America, some other countries I'm not thinking of, but it's traveled kind of all over, and people are only saying positive things about it, so we're pretty excited about this part. All right, guys, so that concludes the video for our Rad Industries Water Inlet Alternator Bracket. I know I was really excited to develop this, and when it finally came out to put it on the car, I was even more excited to see it in action. I know you guys have projects of your own. Hopefully some of you can utilize this on your race car or your race motor. So we have a lot more rad parts that we're gonna do individual videos on, so stay tuned to watch those videos. If you guys have questions, don't hesitate to ask and I will answer them the best I can. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, see you guys later.